very much. And I'm, of course, very glad to be participating in this event. And it's difficult to come after His Excellency Ambassador, who gave us really a very inspiring speech and vision. And I cannot agree more with your assessment of the potential that Romania has in terms of transition that has happened already, but is still to come. I want to also greet the Energynomics for organizing this event, but also my other fellow panelists here. And I know that there are participants who are connected online as well. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss. I was asked to comment a bit what the World Bank expects from COP26. And if I were to summarize it in 2 words, it's ambition and action. And I think a lot of it already, these words I already heard in introductory remarks, and I think we will keep hearing them throughout this event. It's a very extraordinary moment we are living in when the world is still grappling with the impacts of pandemic, of COVID-19, and yet we are looking at our leaders who are gathered in Glasgow to make further commitments to important goals that that in general the transition to net zero emissions entails. Because the focus of our discussion today is energy. I don't think I need to be providing any justification like why it's important for us to look at energy and the numbers. But when I was preparing for today's conversation, I was looking at some of the numbers, and in terms of, for example, decommissioning the coal facilities, the numbers are stunning how much we need to do in the coming decades. So, for example, to eliminate 1/3 of global emission will require retiring more than 100 gigawatts of coal capacity each year for the next 20 years, which means basically world needs to roughly close 1 power plant every day until 2040. And we already discussed here that the emerging markets, we need to do that transition while emerging markets has increasing demand on, they have growing and unmet energy demand. And so how do we do it in a way that will allow all countries to still develop and people to have just transition, not just transition for the sake of transition. So I think that will be another important element for us to think about. It's nice to hear that already we have some success accomplishments in the world, in EU, in Romania, but still we see lots of countries where we still have fuel subsidies. Carbon is too lightly taxed in many environments, and still bold decisions need to be taken to decommission the existing fleet of, for example, coal-fired power plants and stop construction of new ones. So, of course, when we look at COP26, we want to see political commitment to realistic and fair transition, as I mentioned, to transform not only energy sector but entire economy, the way we live. We were just discussing, do we eat beef or not? Yes, it will impact all aspects of our lives. Now, political declarations, I completely agree that we should not stop at political declarations. What will be most important is when those political declarations are turned into actions and when those actions basically are implemented. So we look at COP16 not as an end game. Nobody expects that in mid-November the climate action will be over. It's just one step, but hugely and very, very much important step. When we talk about those political declarations, I think the ingredients for success lie probably in 3 important things. One is policy frameworks. Second one is financing. and then availability of technologies and solutions. On policy frameworks, well-designed power markets, demand-side management, digitalization, they all can help us reduce the cost of electricity. But unfortunately, only a third of countries worldwide have developed adequate legal frameworks for and policies for renewable energy at this point in time. When we look at financing, we all know that enabling policies to unlock investments will require trillions of dollars in additional investments. And this cannot come from grants or from concessional resources. We need private sector financing. And for that, we need to mobilize public-private development financing at scale and design sophisticated financial instruments to unlock high-impact projects. And then I mentioned technology and solutions. We were discussing how do we support, how we do transition. And here, of course, some of the Glasgow breakthroughs, commitment by the countries to develop and deploy the clean technologies and some sustainable solution, I think it's a very, very good step in the right direction. Switching very briefly to Romania, I think I will maybe focus more on things that are difficult and still need to be completed. As we all acknowledge, Romania made important progress in the past, but we still need further consolidation, reforms, and deepening of regional integration to accelerate this energy transition and to meet EU Clean Package, EU Green Deal objectives, as well as to benefit from system efficiency gains. And we cannot not commend Romania for recent decommissioning of the most polluted coal power plant and the intentions to also close the Oltenia energy complex. This is a very clear message to show the clear commitment of the country. But then what is very important, and the challenge remains, that the power sector is to increase the pace of capacity addition to balance the pressures that stem from decommissioning of older and polluting coal-fired plants. And here, if we look at renewables, in the past there was a good progress with development of renewables, but unfortunately the pace stagnated over the last 5 years. And it's really critical that more policy support is needed to create an adequate enabling environment for private sector participation and support the country's fair transition away from coal. Beyond the electricity sector, most municipal-level heating utilities are facing financial distress and require support to transition to sustainable heating models, including policy guidance and capacity building. So energy intensity in Romania is declining, but it's still higher. It's still above the European average. So there is still a huge and untapped potential on energy efficiency side. And for example, we recently developed or supported development of draft long-term building renovation strategy that identified that almost 13 billion euros is needed by 2030 to support this cause. Most importantly, I think in energy sector, we need to strengthen policy and governance frameworks overall on a broader level and increase technical capacity and resources in key institutions. Clear, predictable policy framework will be the foundation of attracting needed private capital in the sector, and this will be a key to successful transition to a greener economy. Now, very briefly on what World Bank is supporting in Romania, we have done and we will continue to provide support in designing and implementing of energy transition agenda and the optimization of the energy markets to define a more sustainable future for Romanians. But this effort, of course, we coordinate with all other development partners, including with EU through DG Reform, DG Energy, DG Competition. We will soon be rolling out one new product that the bank recently developed, which is called Country Climate Development Report. This is a diagnostic that will look at identifying and prioritizing actions that meaningfully reduce GHG emissions and build adaptation and resilience and support the achievement of NDCs and long-term strategies. As you may know, the World Bank is one of the largest multilateral financiers of climate action in developing countries. Over the last 4 years, on annual basis, we provided approximately $21 billion in climate financing. And going forward, we committed to doing more. But in addition to providing this financing, we built the capacity in the countries where we operate to bring and develop local capital markets, greening domestic financial sectors, and to help private capital flow for both climate change mitigation, but also for adaptation. Now, besides delivering on finance, a strong theme for World Bank in COP26 is our effort to ramp up support for green, resilient, and inclusive recoveries from COVID pandemic, as well as low carbon transition that puts people at the center. I mentioned above that we all expect from COP26 ambition and action. We heard Ambassador talking about Romania having an ambition and in fact, being even bolder in its ambition. I think where the bank can come in is to continue to support turning this ambition into action. We are here to work with all the counterparts, with private sector, with authorities, because this energy crisis sends a clear call for action to accelerate the energy transition and to decarbonize the economy in Romania and globally. I hope we all can play our role in it. Thank you very much for your attention.